Yeah.
All right,
Great
folks,
talk.
joining me now, we're going to bring in my pal Rick Perry, who was a former Energy Secretary, former Air Force Captain Perry, don't want to forget that, former governor of Texas. Rick Perry, you heard General Jack Keane, 3 to 5 weeks, we're going to win this war. Do you find any of that objectionable? Do you find any of it difficult? I mean, President Trump keeps saying it. A lot of people don't want to listen to him. I think he's been flat out truthful, you know, as plain as can be. What do you make of it, Mr. Secretary?
Well, I think General Keene's pretty spot on. He's obviously got the history of understanding what we're doing. And, you know, thinking of history, Larry, 50 years ago, I was flying in the region, flying out of Dhahran. And I think about what's happened over the last half century and the Ayatollah and the terrorist regime that's been in there, the American treasure, both in our young men's and women's blood, but also in the cost of the United States that terrorist regime has cost America. I celebrate every moment of this, that President Trump has taken this great leadership role, developed a position now that can bring peace, true peace, lasting peace into the Middle East. And think about, again, our treasure that will be saved because of what Donald Trump is doing today. For me, this is a moment of sheer exhilaration from the standpoint of realizing that we have a leader that we're getting to watch, and his engagement here, working with our allies, working with Israel in particular, and delivering a victory that is so overdue for this country. And I think it's going to be swift. I think it's going to be complete. You know, anybody that wants to say it's going to be exactly these many days, I'll leave that to somebody else. But the fact of the matter is, having the United States in the position that it is from an energy standpoint today, and our ability to deliver energy, not just to ourselves, but to our allies around the world, is because of Donald Trump and what he did in 2017 forward, and then what he has now put into place this second term. It is nothing less than stunning.
You know, you think about it. I want to talk to you. Put your Energy Secretary hat on. You've had so many great careers, but put your Energy Secretary hat on. Drill, baby, drill was absolute genius. Absolute genius. So we've unlocked the spigots for fossil fuels and fracking and horizontal drilling. We are now the largest producer. We are the dominant producer. Hell, as you know, we're not relying on the Middle East. I mean, the Strait of Hormuz is a world price problem. I get that, but that's not really our problem. I mean, we have plenty of supplies. We're doing almost 14 million barrels a day. We're doing record-breaking natural gas kinds of things, and it permeates the entire economy. I mean, but drill, baby, drill. People laughed at that, Rick, but that's really sheer genius is the way I see it.
Yeah, absolutely. And the regulatory side of things, listen, Donald Trump understood one of the simple tenets about governing. Don't overtax, don't overregulate, don't overlitigate, and have a skilled workforce. And he basically said, put that into place, back off, you know, stop all the overregulation, the overlitigation, the overtaxation, and let American innovation lead the way. That's what you're seeing, and that's what I will suggest to you is one of the byproducts in the Middle East as well, is to remove as much of that overregulation, if you will, and it comes from the Ayatollah and those terrorist regimes in place. And freedom will ring. Freedom from all of those things that stifle liberty, stifle justice, and you know, all I can say is, you know, thank you, Donald Trump, for, you know, having the courage. We've had a lot of administrations beforehand, and, you know, they may have talked the talk and maybe even attempted to walk the walk, but it was nothing that had lasting effect the way this engagement is going to have.
Not only that, I mean, it's striking a blow for freedom, striking a major blow for freedom. But, you know, when we come out at the other end of this, and the war's over and so forth, you're going to unleash, I believe Mr. Trump will have unleashed enormous prosperity in the Middle East and around the world. Defeating the Iranian terror machine will unlock freedom and liberty and prosperity. It's going to be unbelievable. The Abraham Accords are going to grow like topseed. Everyone's going to be better off, Rick. Everyone will be better off.
Larry, you look at these clips of these young ladies, the Iranian soccer team, and realizing that that's a byproduct of what's going on here. So everyone who believes in women and women being able to live free and women not being under the thumb of this type of oppressive leadership should be standing and cheering that Donald Trump is the one individual in the world that's really making a difference in that arena. You don't hear a lot of the left talking about that, but the fact of the matter is, for me, it's really it's really disappointing. Listen, as much as I didn't agree with Barack Obama's policies, had I seen him do these types of things, being able to allow freedom to come into a country, I would have stood and said, you know what, Mr. President, I'm supportive of you of that. But because this is Donald Trump, the left and the Democrats, I mean, the idea that they're not more supportive, you know, dare I say, un-American with what is going on here is really disappointing to me. It's like, come on, guys, gals, this is the U.S. and we're winning this thing. Let's get behind this and be a part of it.
I think ordinary working folks, middle-class Americans, they're behind him. I think they're behind him.
Amen.
Anyway,
Amen.
Governor Rick Perry, thank you ever so much. We appreciate it, as always. All right, folks.